All right, well, welcome everyone. Obviously, being in Europe, sovereignty is a huge issue. Let's just go right down the line very quickly and talk for 15 seconds about how sovereignty impacts each of you, and then I'm going to come back to Marc to really sort of kick this off for us.
Okay, I can start. Thank you for having us. I think for MISTRAL, I would prefer to talk about autonomic strategic autonomy, self-determination, or choice. What it means concretely, especially for Europe, is that we can own our future. We can own our destiny, and especially in the new world we're living in, it means owning the technology, owning the infrastructure, controlling our future, controlling our data, controlling the way it flows, and making sure that we can live in a world that is constantly changing with our own tools and own choices, especially in a world where 80% of tech goods and services are coming from other parts of the world, and we know that the world is now over-complexifying itself, so it means that if you own the technology, you can own your future.
And actually, I'm going to change what I just said for a second, because I want to start down here with Marc, actually, because we're really talking about from the perspective of governments here. So what does it really require digital sovereignty from governments when we're thinking about this kind of topic? What's involved from your perspective?
Yes, thank you, and hello, everybody. And thank you for MISTRAL kicking off on the concept. I think it's very important when we talk about sovereignty. 20 years ago, we talked about technical sovereignty, digital sovereignty. Now we get into the domain of AI sovereignty. It's Europe, its champions, the governments to self-determine their own trajectory of their own progress. And so we had in a summit last week, the Franco-German summit. Digital sovereignty is a center back in everything of what we do. How to achieve it is a big question. How much sovereignty? I mean, you mentioned open strategic autonomy. For Luxembourg, we are all about open strategic autonomy. We have dependencies, but we have partners. We rely on international partners. We are a bridge builder. We want to accelerate, I think, European differentiation, European way of doing things, but I think sovereignty should not be seen as protectionism, as us building fortresses. It's about us as a second mover to develop our own singularity and not to be afraid to be audacious in this adventure.
All right, so now let's come back to, you started talking a little bit about from the perspective of MISTRAL, from NTT. Talk about a little bit what that means from your perspective and this partnership.
Yeah, so absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. So I'm particularly pleased to be sitting next to Audrey because we, at both our companies, signed a strategic partnership a little while ago. And that strategic partnership is actually already a reality since we're working both with Tobias and with Marc on some specific projects. Why did we feel that this partnership was particularly important for our B2B customers? Well, for two reasons mainly. We conduct a global AI research every year, and every year we look at what are the key concerns of the CXOs that we speak to. And the concern that all of the CEOs have, or at least more than 60% of the CEOs have today, is around everything that's related to cross-border data privacy. And when that's such a concern, as NTT Data, we need to see how we can answer that concern. And the partnership that we have with MISTRAL enables us to provide our customers with a secure, completely reliable infrastructure that lets the customers own its data and its models. It enables also to be compliant with the regulatory requirements. And last but not least, we can also continue modernizing in the future as we see fit. In addition to that, I'm particularly proud of the work that we do with Marc in Luxembourg, because NTT Data is a Japanese company. And Japan is one of the first countries to actually have received GDPR autarky status. What does that mean? It means that we can process all of the data in regulated environments, such as health, and we can make sure that that data transits and all the flows go well because we have that status. So we're particularly proud as a Japanese company to be able to work with European governments in a compliant manner on data transit.
And by the way, Audrey, I just want to ask, you said briefly, but can you just very quickly sum up what is the partnership specifically? Just what is the nature of it?
Yes, I think the first thing to say is that for a young company like Mistral, having the ability to partner with such a credible and strong company like Entity Data is obviously for us a demonstration of trust and an ability for us to grow faster, and we really thank you for your trust. And indeed, this partnership is really important to us because the way we are working with Luxembourg Grand-Duchy is something that should be inspiring for every European country, even every country in the world. The way we can together bring AI in the entirety to a government and a state to actually say, how do we transport the relationship with citizens? How do we use AI to improve the way citizens interact with states? How we deliver a better public service to citizens? And I think it's really, really ambitious, the way you have moved really early in the process. The way you trusted us was really important for us. And these partnerships deliver exactly what Anne-Sophie described, meaning the best technology with the best partner, but also with the control over the way you deploy it and the way you work with citizen data that should be the most protected data that we are working with.
So, Tobias, thank you for being patient here. So I'm wondering now, you bring a very different perspective to this conversation. So I'm wondering first if you can kind of introduce us to DENNEMEYER and kind of help situate us a little bit, introduce us, and also explain to us how you come into this conversation. What does a partnership like this allow you to do now in this framework that you would not have been able to do otherwise in terms of your services, the type of work that you're now able to do in this world?
Thank you, Chris. 15 seconds or a little bit more? No. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be here. Good afternoon. So probably not many of you know DENNEMEYER, so I give you a little bit of a context. We were founded in 1962 in Luxembourg as a patent and trademark law firm, and meanwhile have developed into a global service provider for all aspects of intellectual property. So if you have a patent, if you have a trademark, if you have a copyright, we help you to protect it and to keep it alive. So that's what we do basically. In that sense, we are a service provider, and we talk a little bit about the value of strategic alliances. So of course, in this industry, I mean, no doubt that AI will change the game, but we believe we need strong partners to be a strong force in this. Our core remains to be a service provider. While many others may say they become a tech player, okay, we hire more data scientists and software developers meanwhile than attorneys and lawyers, but we thought we need strong partners here with Entity and Mistral to really fully exploit the value of AI. And there are several aspects to it. So we talk about sovereign AI, so the topic of data control, data compliance, sovereignty of your data is an important one in the intellectual property space. After all, you talk about your intangible assets and using the capabilities. And that's why we believe we need strong partners for LLM, for the infrastructure space. The AI, the IP space offers various possibilities. There exists roughly 50 million patents, 150 million if you take also patents that are not alive. So that's a big source of all the innovation that has been developed over the course of many, many years in the world, and AI is one great tool, for instance, among many other things, to make value out of this treasure. So I think for us, it's really important to have partners to be able to deliver value to clients. We stay a service provider, and coming from the business side, I always say we don't fall in love with the product, fall in love with delivering superior value to clients, and that's what we're trying to achieve with our partners here.
And if I can ask a follow-up question, I mean, do you find, again, concepts like sovereignty can often be abstract when we have these conversations, but do you find on a tangible level that matters in terms of value to your customers when they...
We believe so, yeah. To be seen, but we believe so. There is definitely, we want to deliver options to clients, and some may tend to one side, some others may tend to the other side. But having these options is important for us. We really have clients from Japan to the US, but we have a strong backbone in Europe. And I think the topic of sovereign AI is a particularly interesting one for all of our European clients, yes.
And then, in terms of the government, I mean, you're not a business, but you have customers in terms of citizens. So in terms of services you're delivering, what are some examples of then maybe things now you've been able to deliver in terms of services that you are now able to do that under this kind of partnership that this is enabled?
Yes, thank you. As a government, of course, you want to future-proof your right of existing, meaning you future-proof governance, you want to be close to citizens, you want to basically move trust in a new value chain. But also, I think as a government or as an organization or even within the EU, we want to be both an adopter and an enabler. I mean, you mentioned, we've been for decades the most trusted, reliable data economy before data was sexy, and given the financial center, given the fact that we have highly structured cross-border international data, and in a way, we also want to invest as an enabler, as a country, to enable those champions here for their pan-European strategy, for them to scale, for them to test bed. And Luxembourg, more often than not, is that place. I mean, we are a very small market. We don't exist really. But our market is the European market. Our market is also being a gateway. And it really makes us really happy to see that those champions leverage that little place to actually deliver what they want to do. Now, on sovereignty, there are always two elements you need to have in mind. It's control and ownership. Control and ownership. That's the definition in our political science. Now, the Draghi and Letta report gave us a reality check, gave us a wake-up call. I think 80% of the cloud services running on European data are non-European. And the intellectual property is owned by the Chinese and by the Americans. So again, I think we should not replicate. That train has left the station, but we have a role to play to be brave and to develop our own singular champions like companies that are sitting here.
Well, on that note, I'll throw it back to you two. I mean, do you find, again, obviously you've struck this partnership, you feel there's some value in putting forth that notion of sovereignty, starting with MISTRAL. You find that that does resonate then with partners, both governments, but also enterprises in terms of then the value they can put forward to other enterprises and consumers? So
I think the important piece here is indeed that it should not be a question. The fact that we should own the technology in Europe should actually not be a question for economical reason, because where you use AI, you create productivity gains, you create more GDP, so you want this benefit to stay here at home. It should not be a question for soft power reason. Because when we talk about AI, we talk about large language model, and language is such a strong piece of diplomacy, of soft power, even sometimes on hard power. You will see that in Russia and Ukraine. So there should not be a question whether we should or not own the technology. And people should have the choice. I'm not saying that people should only have MISTRAL in Europe. We are living in an open world, and we are true believer in open source, and we believe that everybody should be able to access everything. But we should have a European alternative. And our customer in Europe, outside of Europe, should have this choice. And when it goes with governments and public services, there's a strong call to adopt AI in Europe, and today is a perfect place to talk about that. But government should lead by example. And government AI is so powerful to increase the way we serve our citizens better. And definitely government should not only encourage companies and enterprise to use AI, they should drive the call and indeed leverage as much as possible AI to serve better citizens.
Same question.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of points. So as AI becomes more and more developed into companies or governments, and we move to agentic AI domains, and we start revolutionizing business processes, which entity data actually already does. For the insurance, for example, sector, we're working with companies as to how we can rethink through agentic AI workflows the way that they manage claims, etc. And it's a complete rethink of the processes. So it's not only about creating efficiency, like we used to with the first level of generation AI, but it's really about rethinking end-to-end your business processes. So it means that AI becomes even more prevalent than before. And this partnership that we have with Mistral really resonates with governments, with specific sectors in France, in Europe, and in Asia Pacific. So much so that Entity Data has decided to invest in a Mistral AI Center of Excellence here in Paris. We're recruiting profiles both on the technical and on the strategic side, so that we're able to actually really incorporate this partnership into everything that we do, into enabling our customers through the infrastructure, and into making sure that the investment that we're making in Paris will resonate in France, in Europe, but also in Asia Pacific, where there's a strong demand for Mistral AI technology.
You know, I have this perspective, of course, being an American who's moved here, and you know, as I say, feeling 10 years ago, and I came about privacy, which of course I'm very concerned about, and when you ask people about it, they say, of course I'm concerned about my privacy, and then day to day, they just do dumb stuff where they give away their privacy. They click on stuff, they click on Facebook, they do stuff that is just insane. And they don't keep it top of mind. But when you ask about it, they'll say sovereignty is important, data protection, security, all that stuff. So it seems like often the challenge with these things with sovereignty is to keep that top of mind at that decision point where they're making a decision about buying or government or voting or whatever decision making they're in, that they're keeping that in mind as a factor rather than just going with convenience or the easy choice, or they're just making some choice without even thinking about sovereignty as a factor into what they're doing. So you mentioned the center. Obviously, that's one thing that kind of highlights that as a way to keep that in people's minds. I just want to ask maybe each of you, are there things you're doing, maybe starting with Luxembourg, talking to citizens? Is there a way that you talk to them or educate them to get them thinking about sovereignty as a priority, or to sort of keep that or educate them about that, to think about their choices in general, the technology they're using, why it matters to them when they're making decisions?
Well, first of all, I think you're very welcome in Paris. As an American, we still, you're like-minded partners, and if you're worried about GDPR, I think the American states self-adopted also privacy, because I think
that's an indictment of Europe, by the way. I'm a fan of GDPR.
Oh, great.
So,
so trust is still a strong selling point, and also I want to say that the way our European champions sitting here, like the Mistrals today, other SLMs, LLMs, or other models, Yann Lequin is launching the world models. For us to develop singular solutions that are safe, ethical, responsible, anchored in cultural affinity, it's just not a second way of doing it, but it also, we would hope that we would be able to compete as Europeans in the States. And you also see now Americans that are coming to Europe because it's the right thing, the way they want to work. When it comes to your question, I think at the end of the day, it's human capital we want to invest in. It's about reskilling, upskilling. Governments have responsibilities like electricity. AI is general purpose. In 2-3 years, we won't even maybe talk about AI anymore. So the government is attracting a lot of talent for research, for education, and for citizens, and to bring it close to citizens. That's the service, that's the responsibility we have. But it's also remaining to be a conducive environment for businesses to thrive.
Tobias, same thing for you in terms of your customers, like explaining to them why sovereignty could be important, why this is an advantage for them.
So I have two hearts. As a European citizen, I fully agree to what Audrey said, and of course I have an opinion around this, that Europe as a community has to also keep their destiny in their own hands, and so that's one aspect of sovereignty. As a business leader for us, again, it's the way how we deliver value to clients, and you mentioned a very important word for us, trust. Our industry is completely trust-based. I mean, clients that trust us, they're intangible assets, and meanwhile, we talk a lot about things which are not tangible anymore. So the value of intangible assets, my hypothesis, becomes more and more. And this whole industry that we are working on is fully trust-based. So, and that is something that you build over many, many years. That's why also the change maybe in our industry is happening a little bit slower than in other industries in adopting certain technological aspects. But that's for a reason, because indeed it's the trust that you build over years in protecting and maintaining and keeping alive the intangible assets of your clients. So we manage 2 million patents on behalf of our clients, and every mistake that we do has a significant impact to clients. And we want to offer the choices, and I do believe, so maybe as with every analogy, not so right, but for years, when I came into the industry, there was the cloud was not really prevalent thought. It was all about on-prem solutions because clients said, no, I need to keep my data in-house. That has changed. Now AI comes into the game, and I am pretty convinced that the topic of sovereign and I will play an important role for our clients in the future, yes.
MISTRAL, obviously that's been a part of your brand from the beginning, but what else do you do to kind of sell that besides just, hey, root for the hometown brand?
Yeah, it's. I think indeed the building trust is key, and I think AI came at a moment where we inherited from the 10 years of social media legacies and a lot of distrust about tech in general, and a lot of concern about the power of this technology, and we should not blame people because this is a very complex technology to understand and to understand what it can actually do. So first, I think globally we've not been the best at explaining what the technology can do, what it cannot do, and being better in AI literacy in general. But I think to build trust, we talked about privacy. That's very important. We were the first AI provider to offer on-premise deployment, and that was really core to us. We are French, so we are GDPR compliant by design. And ultimately, an additional piece for us with trust is transparency. And our commitment to open source that was there from scratch, we believe that is really strong to create this trust. People can look at the model, look at how it's working, look at how it's made. That's how you build trust, when you show things. And the last piece is also to work in a way that provides value for our customer. And that's really important. There's a lot of question today about what is the real value we get from AI, and there's this MIT report saying that only 5% of use cases are going into production. And the way we work is very different from other AI providers. We are working from other use cases, and we tell our partner, tell us your problem and we'll see how AI and if AI can help you. And then we customize everything, and we want to build custom solutions to actually create value for our partners. And we believe that's how you bring trust, is when you create value for the people you work with.
Okay, you get the last word.
Well, I think the last word is to thank Marc and to thank Tobias for sort of welcoming us into their fold and into making sure that we're able to build further trust with you. And of course to Audrey for the partnership that we've agreed on together. I think, we talked about trust. Our customers trust us to provide them with the most adequate solution for their needs. And when it comes to sovereignty, in the definition that Marc had, I think there's no one better to partner with than with MISTRAL. So I'm very, very happy we've been able to conclude this partnership, and I can tell you it's generated a considerable amount of interest, not just in France, but in Europe and in other regions. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we, with our Centre of Excellence, we make it all happen.
Okay, we'll end on that upbeat note, and thank you all very much for coming. And it was a pleasure speaking with everybody, and please give everyone a round of applause.